Lately, I found myself more often thinking I am not good enough or I'm not doing enough to earn the place in this world I want to possess. I made a complete fool of myself for thinking there's one right future, a future so easily obtainable for me if I just put in some work. It was so clearly described, it seemed impossible to miss, but somehow I always did. So I watched more self-improvement content. Of course, I want to be the best, and changed my workout routine nearly every week to fit my current plan or the current ideal to live, which was represented me through social media. But it never really felt right. And the answer to this is actually pretty simple. It's because it wasn't my idea. How could I be satisfied by something I didn't even want? Giving a pure human individual her only wishes for peace, harmony, and love. A spot in a boy group band with a huge fan base, but taking away from him the control about his life and environment, so he may never change something. Others may admire him for that life, but he wouldn't be happy, no, because it's not what he truly wants. And you could say, in a situation this glorious, he would be far away from happy, so it may not be glorious. As we go on, I want to shortly discuss the influence of media, society, and our upgrowing on our lives, and a way of finding your own ideas in this world full of delusion. But at first, I want to explain to you why there isn't a universal ideal of perfect, an ideal of an admirable life with the help of a little story. It was around 1950 in the United States of America when one issue concerned the higher-ups of the Air Force. The number of plane crashes increased massively over the last years. One explanation for this was that the pilots are simply getting worse, but that didn't quite satisfy them, so they dig deeper and took a deeper look on the cockpit design. And their conclusion was that this design, made for the average pilot of 1926, could be simply too small, didn't fit the majority of pilots, which were a bit taller at that point of history. So they arranged a huge survey with over 4,000 participants, where everyone got several body parts measured, and out of these measurements they calculated the average. After that, they made a 10-factor check with those people to see if they could fit in that new average cockpit. But their conclusion was no one did. As you can see by the story, there isn't something like one ideal for all, but more like an individual path which everyone needs to find by himself to get to a spot where he can feel free and be happy with his life as he may thought only in his dreams would be possible. Which brings us to our first point, the influences of upgrowing media and society. In my belief, these influences, especially the grower part, are mostly passive. Like if you were taught by your parents and, I don't know, Instagram, how the perfect woman would look like, you would search for that woman and maybe blind for the one you truly want. The phrase is true that you are the average of the five people you surround yourself the most. But in my opinion, you could extend it to you are the average of what your environment is. That includes YouTube, TikTok, but also your church, like religion, society's norms and rules, and also the appearance of people in your everyday life. Influences are everywhere, and to be honest, there's no real right and wrong because everything is just an opinion which people state. But as you can maybe see where I'm going here, is that you can't live without being influenced, nor without influences at all if you don't want to escape society itself, which may influence your psyche even more. But you can decide the older you get, how available you are to these influences. Probably at the start of teenage or young adulthood, how available you are to these influences. By just cutting yourself off from parts of media, social groups, or even friends and family members, which are negative about your beliefs and goals. Because the harsh truth is that with so much different opinions, it's impossible to get one that fits you, and only you, out of it. So you must develop your own, which brings us to our next point, how to get your own opinion. Some may argue that you can't have an own opinion which is truly the one of yourself because you were influenced since the day you were born. But while impressions may manifest in your brain and control some parts of how you move and feel, how you behave, one part they doesn't affect is the logical part of the brain. So my theory is that if you only think long enough about something, you can get a truly only rational opinion, which is made 100% out of your soul and logic. And the combination of only those two forces will give you your own opinion, your own free will. If this sounds too religious because of the soul part, don't forget the logic part, because it may be true that by reading stuff you consume the opinion of the author, but you also consume knowledge. And in nonfiction there's so much more knowledge than opinion. So if you read smart stuff and also understand it, in my opinion, you're good to go. If you can understand everything, you don't need to rely on something, and you can escape the cycle of foolishness.